championship continues. Semifinal 2. Let's go!
We have one player who's guaranteed a spot in the grand finals, and it's Purple from Canada. And we have one more player joining him. Who's going to be? It's going to be Nalguidan for Argentina, or YAYtears from America. Greetings, everybody from the tavern, and welcome to the second semifinal. My name is Frodan. I'm joined on the desk by analyst extraordinaire TJ Sanders. How's it going, TJ?
Doing well. You know, we have a good lineup of 4 players headed to Los Angeles for the Summer Championship, but we still got to crown a champion. And both these players, it's pretty interesting. They both have Hunter in their lineup. That means 2 players, and very few that brought Hunter in the field have not only qualified for the championship, but are battling out and were guaranteed to have a Hunter in the finals. Pretty cool.
Yeah, that's right. And it's also performed extremely well. It hasn't been a middling deck. Some people are performing pretty poorly with a few decks like Pirate Warrior and Murloc Paladin going even or slightly better than even. Hunter is not one of those decks for either of those players. Nalguidan is 8-1 with Hunter. YAYtears 7-1 with Hunter. And the stats keep on rolling. In fact, Hunter is so good that we're going to see a Hunter mirror. This is not a matchup I expected to see whatsoever, TJ.
No, not at all. And these guys' lists are very similar. A couple differences here is Nalguidan has a few more tech cards with Hungry Crabs and Stitch Tracker, whereas YAYtears packs a little bit more of a punch and a little bit better early game with double Alley Cat, plus a Bone Mare in the top end. He also has a second copy of Bittertide Hydra, so he's got just a little bit more of that mid-range top-end beef, so to speak. But Nalguidan's starting off. He gets the 1-drop, and YAYtears has none in sight so far. Just kidding.
He's got the Alley Cat, which is not necessarily just as good, considering that the Bloodsoaked Courser gets to trade. And with Hunter Mirrors, we know board control matters pretty much above everything else, unless you're starting to push damage for lethal. As you can see on the right-hand side, for people who are tuning in a little bit later to the stream, not too long ago, we saw Amnesiac go up against YAYtears for the qualifying spot, and YAYtears was able to take out Amnesiac 3-0. You saw the elation in his face during his interview. Just talk about how great he felt and how hard he worked and how much respect he had for Amnesiac. And I think that's all you can really say. When you beat a fan favorite or as someone as polarizing Amnesiac, you're bound to get a lot of attention.
Yeah, and that was also sort of redemption for his 3-0 loss to Amnesiac previously. So in the Swiss rounds in round number 5, as you can see. So a huge win for him, and also faced off against some other notable players, including another Argentinian player in PNC who defeated. So
as well as Glockta free to play.
Yep.
Now, Greenan, thinking about what he really wants here, and the problem with his curve right now is he doesn't have a 3, but he also doesn't have anything to play this turn as well. So he's stuck in a very defensive position, and the Hungry Crab is his best chance to get bored. That's not something that you often account for, put a Glocka Crawler to eat other hunters' pirates, but it works, and it dominates the board at this moment.
Yeah. Pirates splashed over to a ton of classes now with Shaman and Hunter both being in that. And both these players have actually boasted a big win rate with Hunter throughout the playoffs. 8-1 for Nalguidan, and YAYtears actually has a 7-1 score with Hunter, I believe. So one of these players is just going to be getting their second loss with Hunter, which is huge. I mean, people thought that the deck was nearly unplayable for a long time, and people had very little respect for the deck, as you can see with the representation coming into the summer season.
Yeah, they still don't, to a large extent. Hunter is now starting to climb a lot in representation on ladder in response to the recent rise of popularity. A lot of players and streamers are starting to experiment with it. But for the most part, it's considered to be quite the laughingstock of that, along with Rogue, to be unviable. Maybe they have one deck you kind of can play, but you pretty much are just gimmicks. And I think this tournament's kind of proven that it has its pocket, at least in the tournament metagame. In the ladder, it's still also rising in popularity, but it has some noticeable weaknesses. Yeah, primarily to Jade Druid.
Yes, indeed. Spreading Plague is a hell of a card.
Spreading Plague is a hell of a card. And so is Bittertide Hydra. YAYtears with back-to-back Bittertides, and yet Nalguidan does actually have a way to deal with it, or he can be proactive with his high main. And I was kind of thinking, Nalguidan is a little shaky going into his turns 3 and 4, but he's kind of pieced together a decent board here.
Yeah, and he does have a slight pressure advantage because he does have sort of the attacking advantage, so to speak. Now, Bitter Toad Hydra can make some of that up, but it can also just increase that deficit if Nalguidan decides to trade in some of these smaller minions to make room for it.
Dude, if he trades in his kindly grandmother, he actually opens up Deathstalker Rexar for a board sweep.
It's still going to be pretty devastating if it were to come down here. He trades in Savannah Highmane and goes over with Deathstalker Rexar, but that does get rid of his clock. That's one thing to know. But a lot of times, as long as you can play it, where you're clearing much of the board and stabilizing, a lot of times you can win by outvaluing because the zombies can get a lot of damage themselves. As we saw in his quarterfinal match, he was able to get the Tundra Rhino plus Stranglethorn Tiger, which was 10 mana, 7 damage charger from hand.
Yeah, and the thing about Deathstalker Rexar, as you mentioned, is that you don't have the inevitability nearly as much. Look at Nalguidan heads up play here, recognizing that his health total doesn't matter nearly as much without that Hunter hero power. And Hunter's hero power everyone knows is really good, but part of the reason why it's good is because it actually scales so powerful to the late game, because it does more percentage of damage every single time you use it. At first, it starts off at 1 out of 15, so 5–6%. But as you get to 20 health and 15 and 10 health, it starts doing crazy amounts of damage if it's doing 20% of your life total.
Yeah, and gonna go with zombies here, and doesn't get the bloat bat combo.
A big taunt is good enough, though. Or is it? Spellbreaker does silence, but it doesn't silence it to a fiery bat. It just silences to a 4/7. And that's just going to mean that YAYtears, if he picks up Houndmaster, that's his only way to really get back in. Although Nalguidan sets it up so that way Kill Command and Hero Power should close out this game.
Oh yeah, even if board is swept, he should be able to have this one. And I don't see a way that YAYtears comes back from this. I don't think there's a zombie that can help him unless he gets... Even Lifesteal Taunt won't do it.
Lifesteal Charge...
Stone Tusk Boar...
is not enough.
No, actually, yeah, you can.
Well, he'd gain 5, and then he'd leave up 7 on the board. Plus Hero Power. If he gets the Bloodworm.
Yeah, because he wouldn't be able to fit in, say, Crackling Razor Maul, because he'd have to expend the 2 mana for the Zombies, and that beast would cost 6 mana itself if he got the ideal cards.
Hey, it wouldn't hurt to look.
What's in the box? Nothing great.
Big taunt minion, that's about it. 4/8 taunt, and that Spellbreaker really coming into key here. It's a one-of in a lot of these Hunter decks, but if any indication is based off trends, I mean, Spellbreaker is one of the most important cards, even though it's only a one-of.
Yeah, and Kill Command just going to finish off the game, and Nalguidan, despite what looked like a kind of a rough early start with a lot of utility cards and YAYtears slamming Bittertide Hydra into Bittertide Hydra, he was able to get through it and takes the Hunter Mirror matchup and goes up to 9-1 record with Hunter throughout the summer playoffs. That's insane.
I mean, I guess that match doesn't technically really count against Hunter stats because you don't really want to account for Mirror too much in its win percentages.
But his personal stats.
But his personal stats with Hunter is very good.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is we get to see the Hunter against other matchups. Hunter against Pirate Warrior, for example, as you guys can see, it's a mirror match through and through. These guys brought Pirate Warrior, Hunter, Priest, and Druid. It's very good. Against Priest, it's pretty even, and data kind of suggests it. The evidence kind of shows it as well. Against J-Druid, though, Hunter struggles a lot. So it's Hunter's actually well positioned, I think. If its worst matchup is 50-50, I think that means the deck's pretty good.
Yeah, but sometimes the deck lives and dies by whether or not it picks up early tools, especially against Pirate Warrior. We heard YAYtears say earlier in his interview that in his first match against Amnesiac, he struggled to get Pirate Warrior through. That was the big weak deck. And that's why he said he was so nervous going into game number 3 because he was afraid that Amnesiac would be able to pull a reverse sweep against this warrior. But he was able to take it in the Priest matchup and thus able to push it through. So we are going to see a Priest Mirror in game number 2.
Yeah, Priest Mirrors, and I think we've seen a handful of them all throughout the playoffs, enough to kind of understand how this matchup goes. You want to be able to get as much card draw as you can early on. And you can see that YAYtears cares so much about it that he's willing to keep the Northshire Cleric and Powerword Shield. Some argue that you should just try to mulligan as hard as you can for Shadow Reaper, Anduin, Raza the Chained. Is there what differences do we see in their deck lists here? if any. We see a Mind Blast, for example, in Nalguidan. That could be a big difference maker.
Cabal Shadow Priest is in Nalguidan's and at least the Trailblazer in YAYtears. So just a few differences. Wild Pyromancer as well in the YAYtears lineup. So that's a tool that priests have used for a long time, but has fallen out a lot in the Highlander priests. Kind of surprising, but considering you have your cheap spells don't necessarily synergize as well with Wild Pyromancer compared to a list if you're playing 2 ofs of Power Word Shield and things like that.
Both players drawing Shadow Reaper Anduin pretty early, and my kind of Highlander Priest mirrors are ones where both of them get it early and no Raz of the Chain. If it was up to me, Raz would be a 30th card in both their decks, and that would make it more fun. Does tend to be much more of a blowout though, as we've seen. I don't think I've actually ever seen someone get an early Raz and Anduin and lose in this matchup.
Yeah. It's really hard to lose.
It's extremely hard to lose.
Unless your opponent follows it up very quickly with their own Raza plus Shadow Reaper.
Which is a staggering statistic. Normally, when you have like a specific combo of cards, you win anywhere between 70 to 80% of the time at most. If you look at like a lot of data statistics that are tracked.
Yeah.
But to have a 100% win rate, I mean, that's of course my own anecdotal evidence, but like, I'm curious what the actual data is. Like, if you get Raza and Shadow Reaper Anduin, how many turns do you have before it's 100% victory guaranteed?
Yeah, it's kind
Has
of
to be like 3 to 4 turns.
Kind of similar to me when I play on ladder. My opponents have Nazos first mate on turn 1 100% of the time.
And you have patches 100%.
And I have patches in my opening hand 100% of the time. So I like these statistics.
Well, the Kazakus potion. I want to see what he has there, but the most important thing is if he can draw cards from it. Most people usually pick the draw 2 as the highest priority.
Especially if you're playing the tempo Kazakus, which is what was played here. You want to just try and get close to those combo pieces, especially in the mirror.
Looks like he does have the deal 5 option, which is nice to help clear off some of those mid-sized threats. If at least the Star Seeker came down, for example.
Ooh.
Wow, okay.
Fun has ended.
The fun has ended, unless YAYtears also draws Raza right now. Then the fun will continue.
But at the moment, Nalguidan is a Prophet Velen away from nearly killing YAYtears. Because he got Holy Smite and Mind Blast, plus a Shadow Reaper Anduin in hand. That's a ton of damage. It nears an OTK.
Yeah, with double Holy Smites. On the other side, so he's got his own like pseudo form of Mind Blast in a way.
Yeah, he's still a couple pieces away from that, but he's been able to have the board lead for a little bit of the game. He's also getting some chip damage in, which can be relevant. Not often is it relevant, but
it can be, especially if it becomes a race.
Thank you for healing my Raza from 5 to 5.
Thank you.
Nice. Good to always see that players have good manners as well. Nalguidan picks up the polymorph option as well as the deal damage, so it looks like he should be able to deal most with the board. And that just means he gets to put on a little bit of light pressure before his Shadow Reaper Anduin. Ironically enough, YAYtears might push out the Anduin, which makes Nalguidan more comfortable playing his own Anduin because he doesn't want to kill his Raza, but now he doesn't have to.
Again, Nalguidan has the overwhelming advantage with having been able to play the Raza in this case. Right. Radiant Elemental as well. So if he does pick up Prophet Velen, he wins.
Yeah, right now it's already looking pretty bad for YAYtears. Still not over yet, though. Still has a couple turns he can get Rods of the Chained. And that's not it.
I guess it's a minion to play on the board, maybe to take some heat away from his own face, but fighting from behind. Interesting also that both these players came in as a lower seed than their opponents going into the quarterfinals, and were both able to overcome.
I don't really think seeding truly matters. I think it does matter if you're trying to like avoid a specific lineup that's dominating. You know, you see that the anti-pirate warrior strategies seem to primarily prevail at the top. You know, in a game of Hearthstone, I think your edges as a 7 seed on the 2 or the 2 seed over the 7 seed is very negligible these days.
I'd say so.
It comes down to how your lineups and the playing skill influences the smaller percentages as well.
Yeah, on paper, since you performed better in the Swiss rounds, your lineup should have like percentage advantages over the average deck lineup in the field. But again, it does just come down to matchups, and a lot of things can happen in between there as well. Like YAYtears, I don't think he necessarily had a lineup advantage against Amnesiac, especially falling 3-0 in round 5, but that was able to come back and
3-0 him.
3-0 him.
YAYtears picks up Lyra the Sun Shard. That is one way you can get value, and one of the big problems with having the hero power as 2 compared to 0 is not necessarily just the damage race, but your opponent gets a lot more resources by being able to weave in hero powers more efficiently. So what ends up happening is either you take a lot of damage or you fall really far behind in card count.
Yeah.
So Lyra the Sun Shard is a way for you to buy time, and there's some powerful stuff that you can get. You can draw more cards with Lyra. You can draw cards from Lyra that draws more cards, like Draw, Steal, Devour Mine. You can also get a lot of heal and stall. You can even find ways to draw cards too.
Yeah. And not really anything else to do this turn. Doesn't have Radiant Elemental, but is going to be able to stifle some of this. That's a tough choice because none of these cards really have too much value. Potion of Madness probably has the most, because it's one of the only things that can get you extra spells and extra machine gun void form hits later on in the game once you pick up Raza. But yeah, it is nice. He's able to double health.
Oh man.
Yikes.
There is some real cute plays with Pint-Sized Potion and Cabal Shadow Priest. And Nalguidan also has a Radiant Elemental.
Wow. I don't know if he's going to use Radiant Elemental just because by keeping Radiant Elemental in hand, I guess he just has enough damage anyway as soon as he picks up. Yeah, he has enough damage anyway as soon as he picks up.
I don't see why not. He's got Holy Smite, draw a card, maybe get another Holy Smite. Sure. So after Lyra dies, you can just revive it anyways. Yeah, things are looking good for Nalguidan.
Embrace Darkness can pick up Prophet Belt.
Yeah, so he can select enemy minions for 5 mana. And YAYtears doesn't have anything. Dragonfire Potion doesn't clear the board. Is there any shenanigans he can pull off with Potion of Madness? I don't think so. Potion of Madness, Dragonfire Potion, double Holy Smite. No, you can just Hero Power instead.
Shadow thoughts.
It's so ugly.
Yeah, and even then, he's getting close to just dying. He does have Greater Healing Potion, but will that be enough to let him live until he finds Raza? He's still got 13 cards left in his deck, so it's not even a high chance that he draws it in the next couple of turns.
Thoughts.
I mean, I guess that is the best way to clear the board here. Hero Powering Lyra, stealing the Radiant Elemental.
The shadows grow short.
And Holy Smite, Dragonfire Potion. It's not very pretty. Cost you a lot of resources. Good sequencing is to be able to squeeze in just a little bit more damage in case it matters. Feels like it really won't though. Well, let's see what comes out of the Eternal Servitude.
Probably Lyra. In that case,
Hero Power, Spirit Lash, Hero Power, so he's 2 damage off lethal right now. Needs to find a cheap spell, ideally like 0 mana.
or Powered Shield to be able to try and find another card, but Shadow Essence is not it.
Would you toss in the Shadowward Horror just to see if you find lethal? There's only Circle of Healing and Silence, right? Are the only 2 ways you can find lethal?
Yeah, I mean, there are some sub 2 attacker below minions left in the deck, but are they really that threatening? Yeah, I mean, I guess putting him at 2, putting him at 4 are kind of similar, because if he has Greater Healing Potion, he heals out of range of it anyway, and you can always plop it down the following turn.
True.
Shadow Essence and Embrace Darkness.
Yeah, so Nalguidan has the Shadowward Horror and the Shadow Essence for 10 mana this turn. Seems to be what's cleanest. Looks like he's going to go for Shadow Essence first to see what happens. I mean, maybe he pulls his own Doomsayer.
Yeah. Or...
Which wouldn't be worth saving.
Or his own Pocket Ballad.
Oh!
Or Acolyte of Pain. Not bad.
Yeah, in this case, I'm certainly using Shadow Word Horror.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, the very funny thing is that Nalguidan will not draw any cards to the Acolyte as long as Shadow Word Death's in the hand for YAYtears.
At
least the Trailblazers are kind of going to work against YAYtears in this situation because of the fact that he, one, dilutes his deck for Raza, and two, gives Nalguidan a Shadow Word Death target, which he has 2 of in his hand that have been dead, which deals YAYtears an extra 2 points of damage.
Maybe he can...
Maybe, no.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you can find some life gain off the pack.
Sure, there you go.
Yeah, like Iron Hides and other things like that.
Or Lyra into stuff, I don't know.
Yeah. Not much really else to say here. Nalguidan is just going to put the beat down. Again, 2 damage off lethal, or 1 card off lethal. Unable to really close it out, but the inevitability has been there for several minutes now. YAYtears plays it out just because he still had a chance, technically.
Yeah.
But we know there really wasn't a chance. Rich Inventor needs to pull up something big here.
Not enough.
That's not it.
Gonna deal all the damage he can.
Right, and I think that's going to close it out. Nalguidan is going to go to a 2-0 lead and just has to win 1 game with his Pirate Warrior to close out the series.
And even though Pirate Warrior has struggled on stream, and I think even off stream with a lot of players seemingly targeting the deck, it's still a deck that I put a lot of faith in. If I'm up 2-0 and just have to win 1 game with it, because even if you're unfavored in each of the remaining matchups, which I don't think he is by any stretch of the imagination, he's an overwhelming favorite to win the series.
And I think you can just kind of sense the composure on both sides. You know, before when we saw YAYtears go up against Amnesiac, vastly different body language. You know, every move, every single outcome of a draw, or when they're going for a random effect, had such a big mental impact. You can see both players trying to stay calm. In this case, it feels like they're both in high spirits. So even though he's down 0-2, we'll see what happens to YAYtears and Nalguidan series when we come back. More action here at the Summer Playoffs.
Gather round the fire, for there's a new tale to be told. This is the America Summer Playoffs!
Nalguidan currently leads the series 2-0 and could be the first non-North American player to go to the finals and become a champion. That's right. It's always been Canadian or American players that's gone to the finals. He could be the first person to break that streak. In the meantime, we've always had an American, a member of the USA, in the finals. YAYtears could be the guy holding serve for that as well. Although I feel like America's has gotten closer and closer together in terms of unifying. I mean, I don't want to say that just as a sweeping statement, but it feels like America's works really hard to disprove Europe and disprove other regions. It doesn't really matter as long as you're coming from that region. Although most of the criticism against America's tends to be to quote NA, so I guess maybe they don't qualify for that. I'm thinking out loud here, TJ, and I kind of arrived to my entire conclusion.
I mean, we're getting closer. If you look at the record by region that we showed earlier on in the broadcast,
yeah, we're in it together.
America's is getting closer.
We're all in it together.
It's all the Americas here.
Yeah, and Diego Diaz made quite the run in the spring season, and we'll get to see at least 2 more Latin American players join him. As looks like we go to a good old-fashioned Pirate Warrior mirror. You know, one of those interesting things about it is how are you able to jockey for board control in the beginning? And a lot of times you see people hold on to like the 1-mana minions, but that's because you have a better play. And Nalguidan doesn't have any weapon to tie everything together. No weapon for the Corsair, or for the Bloodsail Raider. No weapon for the Cultist. No weapon for the South Sea Deckhand. And is falling increasingly more behind by the turn.
And you saw his face. He may not have played South Sea Deckhand on turn 1 if he had seen that YAYtears had an Isosphorus mate on turn 1. You know, that play gets heavily punished by Nazal's first mate because you get to trade in the patches and take the weapon hit. So he looked a little bit peeved that YAYtears was able to draw it on the following turn, but man, this is definitely starting to snowball out of control. He's able to continually push over these minions by utilizing this upgraded weapon, and even more damage coming from the Bloodcell Raider. So Nalguidan is going to have to play a more control-oriented battle plan in order to try and be able to push through. I mean, Korkan Elites and the Arcanite Reaper are great because they can serve multiple purposes. He can start killing off minions since he has the resource advantage, and then try and, you know, land some big guys, land the last threat effectively, and try and stabilize with the armor up.
And now, YAYtears was originally blocked by this Dread Corsair from being able to keep his minion alive, but has the Arcanite Reaper. And then that leads into a Korkan Elite and Heroic Strike for turn 6. So everything seems to line up very well. Even though he doesn't get that last weapon charge, it seems to be the highest tempo play he can generate right now.
Mm-hmm.
Nalguidan is going to hope that he can get some heavy lifting done by this Bigger-Tide Hydra. He's kind of behind in the life total, but if he can get some big damage out of that, or perhaps maybe a different alternative, Captain Greenskin. Captain Greenskin dies to the Arcanite Reaper, though. Or maybe he wants his opponent to kill his Captain Greenskin because he doesn't have enough life to play with.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things that can happen. So let's say, well, we do have to count the damage, too. There's actually 13 damage. So if he goes for that play, he's actually just dead.
You are correct. If he swings into this, actually, well, there's no other play. You're not going to armor up ever this turn.
He could Korkan Elite into the Bloodcell Raider, but with 2 5-mana cards in hand, I don't think that's a play you make very often.
Yeah. But assuming he doesn't die, what would you actually go with? Captain Greenskin? Or
probably Captain Greenskin, to be honest. And he's actually going to swing face, but he's still dead, because that's exactly 17 damage.
That was super fast.
Wow.
I mean, I've played Pirate Warrior Mirrors in the past, where the games have lasted 2 minutes, but we played almost every card in our hand.
Yeah.
It was very, very fast.
Yeah, Nalguidan just gives a little bit of a smile. His eyes kind of got wide, and he's like, wait a second.
Jeez.
That's all my health that he was able to deal. And just as quickly as it started, it ends, and YAYtears puts himself on the board.
Yeah, and the question becomes, does the Pirate Warrior become a liability now for Nalguidan? Because now YAYtears has the Hunter up against it as availability, and that can also be a tough matchup. And finally, the Priest, which, you know, I'm kind of wavering back and forth. A lot of people feel like the Priest is like reasonable chance against the Pirate Warrior, but a lot of people say it's like very Pirate Warrior favored. So I'm kind of leaning on the side that Priest is still unfavored, but the more I see of it, it's like, Priest actually wins a decent amount of time.
Yeah, it's a pretty scrappy deck. That old Priest, it can a lot of times piece together enough removal early on to be able to stabilize with Greater Healing Potion, Shadow Reaper Anduin. Just all the removal makes it so Pirate Warrior, if they can't stick a threat early, they can just run out of gas. But yeah, the Hunter, I think it's going to be the hardest deck. Double Galactic Crawler, double Bloodcell Corsair. It is a tough deck to just stick anything on the board. But it is susceptible because if it doesn't get those early anti-aggro tools, or anti-Pirate Warrior tools specifically, then it doesn't have any life gain. It doesn't have any way to block damage outside of Houndmaster. And it doesn't have any way to sort of come back on a board that's lost.
Yeah, well, if Nalguidan can win one more game, he will face Purple in the Grand Finals. This is currently a shot of him live, waiting to see if he can become the summer champion and become a 2-time America's champion.
Yeah.
Which I think would be the first for the region.
For America's,
yeah, Europe, obviously, we had Pavel twice this year.
Yeah.
But
and even Tice has been a regional champion in Europe twice as well.
That's right. That's right. So would be quite the accomplishment to achieve over the course of a couple of years. Europe's had their dominance over their periods. We've had China had multiple people win Gold League, for example.
Asia Pacific had Handsome Guy win it multiple times. So he would be, I believe, the first America's player to do so.
To repeat.
It was back in 2015.
Right,
when he was able to do it.
That's actually, like, back in 2015, there's only one America's Championship, too, at the end of the year.
Yeah.
So he had to just decisively win that one, too.
Yeah, the whole year players fought it out, and then at the very end, some players qualified, and everybody else got put into one giant last call pool. And they all played in one giant tournament where the top 8 went to a regional championship, and the top 4 from that regional championship went to the world championship. But Purple, not only did he qualify for the world championship that year, but also won the seasonal championship, as we've been saying. This is a reasonable opening for YAYtears. Got a coin kind of grandmother into Crackling Razor Maw.
Yeah. Deathstalker Rexar is not a card that you normally think would be very good against the aggressive decks outside of its hero power, or sorry, outside of its battle cry, primarily because its hero power is very slow. But if you're able to get to the stages of the game where you can build a beast reliably with enough mana cushion, you should be able to start picking up a lot of taunts, and that gets in the way of a lot of the pirate warriors. So even though it's normally like a dead card against, a lot of other stuff, it's actually pretty useful. And the battle cry is still really good. Like, I've used it really a lot against aggro druids and the pirate warriors, and it's been very clutch in those things.
Also just the Armageddon.
Armageddon is also nice too.
Because
you always think of the Deathstalker Rexar as a control buster, because it's like infinite threats that come out from the hero power. They can't deal with the constant big streamline of big 3 beasts. It has its uses.
definitely does. YAYtears was presented with a few pretty poor options from the Crackling Razor Maw, including Divine Shield, Poisonous, and Stealth. Didn't want to do Poisonous because he was afraid that Patches would just be able to trade over it.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And it wouldn't do much. It would have done a lot there, but he did have Kill Command to follow up on a big 3-drop, so not the biggest deal in the world.
Nalguidan had a little bit of an awkward turn prior to picking up that Dread Corsair, but now can kind of piece together a nice little mana usage. I guess the Kor'kron Elite was originally what he was looking at. Now, though? Well, actually, he has a couple different things he can do. Besides a Kor'kron Elite, he can play Dread Corsair, Bloodsail Cultist. Also has like some other fancy plays of like setting up another Bloodsail Raider with the Fiery War Axe.
Either way, he's pulling Patches.
It's true.
So has to factor into his play. Does he just pop Divine Shield with Patches? Does he push Face and hope that his Dread Corsair protects that damage and he gets recurring damage with Patches? So it's hard to race in this situation because there's so many tools in Hunter that can punish you, but actually just does decide to go for the Kor'kron Elite.
I can kind of see what maybe his head's at. I think at this point, you're like understanding that your opponent has an opportunity to swing the board with Galactic Crawler. And by playing like these pirates individually, you're allowing Galactic Crawler to have a much larger impact on board versus if you're able to play multiple pirates a lot at the same time. Like if you upgrade this, you can play the free Dread Corsair. So if you play 4 pirates, if he has a single Galactic Crawler, it becomes a little bit harder to like swing the board decisively.
Yeah, it's a really smart way to play this particular matchup, and almost any matchup where a double Galactic Crawler is present, especially if your opponent keeps multiple cards off the mulligan, because then they're pretty likely, and there you go. It's still going to be a swing.
But it's not nearly as... Oh my goodness. Wow. Double Galactic Crawler all the way across the sky.
I hate to call that early, but that's most likely going to be the end of the game.
Yeah, and this is where like cards like even Stitch Tracker come into play. I don't think it's in the deck list of YAYtears. I'm actually scanning it really quick.
He does not have Stitch Tracker.
But some lists do have it, and you're able to fish for Galactic Crawler even that much more efficiently alongside tracking. So Nalguidan played around like, the 1 Galactic Crawler swing, because he would have had, a 3/3 or something on the board. He could kill off the Galactic Crawler, kill off the Houndmaster, and develop something like the Frothing Berserker. But now the 2nd Galactic Crawler, that's too much. It's too much, and I think that's the straw that broke the camel's back here.
Yeah, there's absolutely no potential for a race scenario here, and YAYtears has a ton of options left in his hand to be able to fight resource battles if Nalguidan decides that he wants to start attacking the minions with these weapon swings. So no matter which way you slice it, Nalguidan is very dead. We need to go to the next level with Hearthstone and create a cheap beast, a crab perhaps, that eats other beasts.
There was something that actually ate bees. It was Hemmet Nestingware, the original Hemet.
It did.
Not this new Hemet that apparently is used for shenanigans with Archbishop Benedictus, but to drain the soul and the hope from your opponents.
But Dan, it's not a crab. Hemet is not a crab. That's what we need.
You need a beast minion to eat other beasts. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Spellbreaker can bring the Galactic Crawler back down to a 2-2.
So Spellbreaker's pretty useless in this position. Nalguidan, as desperate as it comes to stabilize, I'm trying to find a series of draws here that lets him get out, but he can't even race. He has to just play control. And YAYtears can start finding big body after big body. Or he can just threaten a 2-turn lethal with Houndmaster, Eaglehorn, Bow.
Yeah.
Wow, goes for the Builded Beast, all right.
It's more fun that way,
It is more fun. All right.
Stealth is pretty good.
Angry Chicken. I want him to play the Angry Chicken just to taunt up and enrage. But doesn't seem to be the case there. YAYtears just having fun. He's a kid at the toy store playing with his Legos. Oh, what does this beast do? I don't know. What does this beast do? I put it together. Oh, it's a chicken with a lot of life. It's got nothing.
That's what I made with my Legos.
Yeah, apparently. Just pretty much put a couple Mattel blocks together and you get a Build-A-Beast.
Indeed. But Nalguidan, he's struggling now. Again, the Pirate Warrior has been the weak link. Actually, for both these players, their worst record by a lot in their matches throughout the summer playoffs has been Pirate Warrior because of the targeting and just because players expect it. So they put Galactic Crawlers in the deck. There's a lot of Galactic Crawlers in the tournament.
All right, well, we go to our Game 5 of this series. The first Game 5, by the way, of our top 8. That's right, everything's been 3-0 or 3-1. Convincing victories, nothing's been super contested. And this is the first one, and it'll be Priest versus the Pirate Warrior. Do you want to say that Hunter won its game that wasn't a mirror, by the way? So if you discount the Hunter mirror, then YAYtears Hunters win 8-1 this tournament. Extremely impressive stats, and combining with Nalguidan's 8-1 and 8-1 with YAYtears, then that would mean that it is 16-2.
Yeah, and if you count the mirror matchup, 17-3, which is still very impressive.
17-3, which is what, 85% win rate?
Something like that. Very high for both these players. And they have the same lineup, and they both made it to the stage. Nearly the same lineup. It's the same archetypes, just some different choices within those archetypes. And now we're going to get to see the Priest versus the Pirate Warrior. And we've talked about this matchup a lot over the past couple days. And tend to lean, both of us, I think, tend to lean towards it being Warrior favored, but ever so slightly.
Job's done. Well, the Warrior favored does tend to be extremely dependent on whether or not you can get a fast start, and that is part of it. Nalguidan has Fiery War Axe and Bloodsail Cultist. That's some of the most powerful cards you can ask for against the Priest. Priest has really nothing going on. However, if Nalguidan gets a little bit too greedy, the Gluttonous Ooze can smack down that entire plan.
Yeah, and I'll most likely just come out on curve on the Fire War Axe. Wonder what he's thinking about here. Maybe I was thinking for a second whether or not it's worth it to coin Dread Corsair, but next turn he guarantees. I guess you guarantee Bloodsail Cultist anyway because you have the second one. But he can go for a bigger swing next turn because he can play Dread Corsair, coin Bloodsail Cultist, and then another Dread Corsair. Yeah,
you don't want to necessarily play the Pirates against the empty board because the Priest can clear it off and you don't have the Bloodsail Cultist guarantee. This is definitely, of course, not what Nalguidan wanted, but he still has a backup weapon with the Rusty Hook. Not quite as sharp as the Fiery War Axe, but still good enough to get the job done, at least to slice down this Gluttonous Ooze.
Mm-hmm.
Or to hook at it. kind of doing his best patchwork impression.
Yep. He does have he does have some good follow-up with minions. He can start pushing damage, but he's going to need a turn to set that up, and YAYtears has Dragonfire Potion in hand, so it may be stopped in its tracks, but the question will be, will the damage have already been done at that stage? Because if he goes 2/3 next turn, nothing's removed, the following turn he pushes 10 plus Corkin at 14.
He just passes. Doesn't have any answer to it. Nalguidan also picks up a couple of powerful plays. He's got double pirates, or he's got Corkin Elite. I find all of the above acceptable in some capacity. Turn 5 onwards is Holy Nova and the threat of Pine-Sized Potion and Shadowward Horror. And all of your plays are susceptible to it. If you want to hedge against AoE, you play Corkin. Plus, you have the ability to maybe pick up some kind of upgrade and then make the Dread Corsairs cheaper. By playing the 2 3/3 taunts, you get 6 power on the board, but Corkin Elite gets 8 damage over 2 turns. So Corkin Elite's actually a little bit more damage.
Yeah, Bloodstone Raider plus Dread Corsair does 7 damage over the course.
And then Corkin's 2 is 8. So
yeah.
I guess Corkin Elite does more damage. Good.
If he's going for straight damage efficiency. And it is just as susceptible to removal, but I think damage efficiency is the name of the game.
It is. The way that the Corsairs or the Raiders can be better is if he had Southie Captain. That would be a reason to vote for that. Oh, well, that works out kind of convenient. Potion Madness and Spirit Lash with the Thanos. That's a 3-card combo that I would never play around. And YAYtears has that clear.
And draw a card and heal a bunch.
Oh, it doesn't clear the 3/4.
No, not quite. But I mean, good enough at this stage.
Yeah.
You're just trying to, stabilize as much as possible, and the cycle is just a bonus.
Correct, correct.
Ooh.
But Bitter Tide Hydra coming down. That's going to be hard to answer here for YAYtears. Doesn't have Shadow or Death. And no even weakness. So Dragonfire Potion's significantly hindered here. Like, normally the impact on turn 6 is massive, but it's not going to do anything. Well, jeez.
Bittertide Hydra has been killing priests. Just in the top 8, we've seen it happen a bunch.
Captain Green's getting a great pickup, and that Rusty Hook is climbing in power level. Just constantly grinding away at whatever YAYtears puts out.
Kind of just like throwing this 3 damage weapon in the face. I don't think killing this 1/1 has much merit.
It's a 2-turn lethal setup if he goes face.
Yeah.
I mean, either way, it's a 2-turn lethal setup, I guess, because he's got enough damage to cover him.
Yeah, I think in Dragonfire Potion, if Dragonfire Potion comes out, it's not a 2-turn lethal if he attacks into a Novice Engineer.
Right.
Because he'd have 15 damage, his opponent would be at 17 health still. So I think this weapon attack is definitely slated for the face.
There you go.
Basically forcing out Dragonfire Potion. It looks like Nalguidan has it, unless something big's picked up here. Is Holy Nova enough? I don't think so.
Doesn't look like it. He needed, I don't know what he needed, like as a 1 draw. He's getting Dragonfire Potion and just pass, but Nalguidan's got him covered, and Bittertide Hydra showing off why it's such a card to be feared, as we have our first Latin American player here going to the finals in America's playoff history.
It's a big deal for the region and for Argentina as well, just specifically as a country. Yeah. Definitely one of the top in Latin America in Hearthstone, with a lot of top-tier players, and Nalguidan being one of them. Kind of finally his break. He qualified for the championship, but now making a finals appearance after having played in every single playoff or preliminary up to this point. He finally gets that big shot to take it all.
Yeah, and as much as YAYtears has lost, I think for him, what's really important is that he's qualified for the Summer Championship. He didn't look super distraught for dropping that series compared to if he lost 1 round before, as he defeated Amnesiac in the round of 8. So that sets up our finals. We have Canada versus Argentina, Purple versus Nalguidan, and we get to see if Purple can become the first ever repeat champion for Americas in Hearthstone history, or can we have our first Latin America champion? I think either of those outcomes are cool to watch.
Usually there's that one storyline that you're hoping happens when you get to the finals, but in this one, both of them are really cool stories.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, that series also, that best of 5 was a mirror match through and through, so there's very minor differences, but I think what stood out to me about those lineups is that lineup works with Hunter. Yeah. Hunter's a deck that gets slept on. I think moving forward, we don't have any more playoff weekends after this until championships for HCT. But I think Hunter is still a force to be reckoned with, and it's not getting touched by the bounds patch that's coming up in just a day or two.
Yeah, it might end up shooting up a couple tiers even.
We'll see.
It's that big of a deal, and this is going to be pretty tough for Nalguidan in the finals though, because again he's got Pirate Warrior, and Purple's been killing Pirate Warriors, slaying them left and right.
Also got Hunter, so we'll find out what happens. The grand finale of the summer playoffs will conclude with Purple versus Nalguidan.